Hey there, Dr. Craig Chalkwist. This is my 6th video in the series on reimagining the USA. So let's talk about unity and plurality. So this is a theme that goes back to actually before the founding of the Republic and becomes central to it right from the very beginning. So there are phrases similar to e pluribus unum, out of many one, or one out of many, that can be found way back in pre-Socratic Greek philosophy. Heraclitus, Pythagoras mentioned them. The founders of the Republic were educated men, and so they were aware of this, and they witnessed how the colonies and the many different peoples of the colonies pulled together to make a country. So that's why our Great Seal says e pluribus unum. In our day, we have been turned against the idea of plurality, also known as variety, diversity, particularly in circles where regressive billionaires with a fascist agenda have been pounding us with the message that diversity is not okay, and trying to play on our fears of diversity, especially the fears of white people among us. And you know, this worldview of fear is always associated with authoritarianism. And it reminds me of some years ago, I came across a news story about this cat who hung out in a hospice. And when people were about to die, the cat would go into their room on its own. It wasn't trained to do this. And it would curl up next to them and help them transition. And so there were various news stories about this, and when I went around reading about it to tell my students about it, the stories sounded like, oh, this miracle cat, this wonderful cat, this sensitive animal, and so on. And then I came across the Fox News version, and it talked about the horrible cat of death. And I thought, this is such a great example of how worldviews based in fear cloud our judgment. So there's a lot of propaganda right now about, for instance, you know, people of color are being hired over white people. And if you look at the actual research, far, far, far more often is it the other way around. And it has been for centuries. For the 2 plus centuries we've been in existence as a country. So this is how racists and white nationalists play on fear, right? The truth is, if you fear diversity, you're not only in the wrong country and on the wrong planet, you're in the wrong universe, because the universe itself thrives on diversity. Diversity is what philosophers call ontological, which means it's built into reality. It's the source of the creativity of the universe itself. It creates through difference, and that's where the sense of unity comes from. If you tear the two apart, there's a problem. And that's where some of the conflict comes from. Some folks are only emphasizing difference, and some are only emphasizing unity, and they belong together. They go together. Ecosystems grow and flourish and survive through difference and diversity, creating unity. So if there's a message that's urgent for our time, not only in the United States, but in other countries as well, it's that we're part of a highly diverse human family. Maybe we should actually act like it. Many years ago, as an adoptee who was curious about his roots, I contacted birth families and then decided to keep going. So I participated in the National Geographic Genographic Project. And they traced my ancestry all the way back to East Africa, where we all come from. They gave me a map of where my ancestors had traveled. And of course, some stayed there and some went around the world. All the same human family. And you could see that on the map itself. And since I've chosen to be an educated American instead of an ignorant one, I knew all this already. But it was so gratifying to see that map taking us all around the world and thinking everywhere I go is my family. So there's a consideration I would leave you with at the end of this video. And I think that the very soul of the United States, more often observed in the ideal rather than the real, is diversity, is variety, is plurality, and the unity that comes from that. That is the very foundation and soul and heart of this country, and always will be, in spite of all propaganda to the contrary. So let's make it work together, one dream at a time. Thanks.